Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles. I never thought I'd be the guy dealing with financial betrayal in my own marriage, but here I am. My name is Elijah, I'm 34. And until recently, I believed I had a solid marriage with Christina, my wife of 3 years. We had been together for 6 years in total, building what I thought was a stable, comfortable life. I work in finance, specializing in risk analysis for corporations. Ironic, considering I failed to identify the biggest financial risk of all my own. Wife, we lived well, nothing extravagant, but we had security. I made good money, ensured we had savings, investments, and a financial safety net. Christina worked in event planning, a career she was passionate about, though it didn't bring in nearly as much as my salary. Still, she contributed, or at least I thought she did. That assumption shattered when I noticed the first red flag. It started with a fraud alert from my bank. A new credit card had been opened, in my name. Confused, I immediately called
customer service. This was approved 3 weeks ago, the representative told me. Would you like to dispute it? I froze. 3 weeks ago, I had been on a business trip. A wave of unease washed over me as realization crept in. Christina, she had access to all my
personal information. My social security number, bank details, even my passwords. But why would she open a card without telling me? My mind raced. Was she in debt? Had she been scammed? Blackmailed? Hanging up without disputing the charge just yet, I pulled up our joint bank account. What I saw made my stomach tighten. Thousands of dollars were missing, not in large withdrawals, but through a slow, steady trickle. A few hundred here, 500 there, 200. Last month alone, the patterns were subtle, but the amount added up quickly. I checked her personal credit cards, maxed out her email, filled with debt consolidation offers, our savings account half gone. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of betrayal settle in my chest. Where had the money gone? Was she supporting someone, an addiction? Another man? My mind buzzed with possibilities, each one worse than the last. I waited. When Christina finally walked through the front door, she was smiling, completely unaware that I was sitting in the dimly lit room, laptop open, all the evidence pulled up before me. "Hey, babe," Christina said, as she set her bag down by the door. "Why are the lights off?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her. The air in the room was thick with tension. She must have felt it, because her smile wavered. "Sit down," I said. My voice was steady, too steady. She hesitated. Why? Without a word. I flipped my laptop around the screen, illuminating the room in a harsh glow. Bank statements, credit card balances, transaction histories, thousands of dollars, siphoned away piece by piece. Christina's face went pale. "Explain," I said. She swallowed hard. "It's nothing. Elijah, I just had a few unexpected expenses." I raised an eyebrow. "So you opened a credit card in my name?" Silence. Then, to my absolute disbelief, she laughed. "Elijah, don't be so dramatic," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "We married. It's not like it's your money. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine, right?" My fists clenched. I could feel my pulse hammering in. My ears. "Where is it, Christina?" I demanded. She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "I just needed a little extra to cover some things," she said, her voice light, almost careless. "But my husband." "So it's fine, you'll pay it off anyway." She said it so casually, so arrogantly, like I was her personal ATM, like my hard-earned money was hers to burn through without consequence. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even scared. She truly believed I wouldn't do anything about it, she thought. I was too nice, too responsible, too weak. She thought she could get away with it. She thought she was untouchable. She was wrong. Very, very wrong. I took a slow, deliberate breath, forcing the anger down. Then I did something that made her eyes soften. In relief, I smiled. "You're right, Len," I said smoothly. "We married. What's mine is yours." Her shoulders relaxed. I nodded as if I were finally seeing her point of view. "So I'll pay it off." Relief. flooded her face, her posture eased. She smiled at me. Smug. And satisfied, see. I knew you'd understand, babe. I leaned in, brushing my lips against her forehead, my voice a whisper. But if what's mine is yours, I murmured, then what's yours is mine. She barely reacted. She had no idea what was coming, because while she was busy spending my money, I was about to take everything from her. I should have seen the red flags earlier. Looking back, they were everywhere, but that's the thing about trust. You don't see the truth until it's shoved in your face, and now I saw everything. Christina wasn't reckless. She wasn't the type to blow through money on flashy purchases, parading around in designer brands or dripping in new jewelry. No, she was smart, subtle, calculated. When she bought expensive clothes, she'd brush it off with a casual, "It was on sale," or a client gifted it to me. When she went out to high-end restaurants, she'd claim her job covered the tab. When she traveled, she framed it as a business trip or helping a friend with a wedding, and I believed her. Why wouldn't I? I made good money. We lived comfortably. I thought we were financially stable. More than that, I thought she was responsible. I thought she loved me. I thought she'd never betray me like this. But now I knew better. That night, after Christina fell asleep, I sat at my desk. My laptop opened, the glow from the screen casting long shadows across the room. My hands were steady as I typed, but my pulse pounded like a drum in my ears. 3 credit cards opened in my name, maxed out over $42.00. In debt, pending out applications for even more loans. This wasn't just careless spending. This wasn't impulse buying. This was calculated theft. This was fraud. And she had the audacity to believe I would just pay it off. Not a chance. I needed to know where all the money had gone. I dug deeper, pulling up every transaction from our joint bank account, cross-referencing purchases, tracking payments. The deeper I went, the worse it got. $888. $00 high-end clothing and luxury handbags, $5,000 first-class plane tickets, under $500 of star hotels, $4,300 jewelry. At first, I thought it was just her, just Christina getting greedy, indulging in a more materialistic lifestyle behind my back. Maybe she wanted the finer things. Maybe she had fallen into the trap of luxury spending, beyond her means, too ashamed to tell me. But then I noticed something strange. Some of the purchases weren't even made in our city, Vegas, Miami, New York. I frowned. Why? Was she traveling so much? And then I saw it, hotel bookings, 2 guests, one name I recognized and one I didn't. Christina and someone named Randy Jones. I sat there staring at the screen, my chest tightening like a vice, my hands curled into fists, nails digging into my palms as I forced myself to breathe. Who the hell is Randy? My mind raced, scrambling for a rational explanation. A work trip, a friend, a mistake. I needed more information. I grabbed Christina's phone from the nightstand, careful not to wake her. I wasn't about to leave any evidence by SCR rolling through her messages. I wasn't stupid. Instead, I checked her notifications, and that's when I saw it. A text preview from a contact named Randy. Had an amazing weekend. When can we go again? My stomach dropped. She wasn't just stealing my money. She was using it to fund her affair. I put the phone down and exhaled slowly. My whole body felt cold, like I'd been dunked in ice water. This wasn't just financial betrayal. This was personal. And now I wasn't just going to take her money. I was going to take everything I needed. Airtight, proof. So I made 3 phone calls. First, call my bank. I reported the fraudulent credit cards in my name and requested detailed transaction, locks, every dollar, every charge, every transfer. Second call, a forensic accountant. I needed a professional to trace the money, connect the dots, and give me a full financial picture. I wanted to know exactly how much she had stolen from me and where. It all went. Third call, a private investigator. Find out everything I told him. Who is Randy? Where does he live? Does he even know about me? Because if Randy was just as clueless as I had been, Then maybe he'd want revenge too. Now I needed Christina to think she had won, so I did something bold. The next morning, I woke up before her got out of bed like nothing had changed, and made breakfast. The smell of coffee and eggs filled the kitchen as I moved around, like it was just another. Morning, babe," Christina said sleepily, stepping into the kitchen and stretching. She had no idea. I turned smiling at her like a devoted husband should. Morning, hungry. She blinked in surprise. "You cooked?" "Yeah. Figured I'd treat my wife," I said, smoothly sliding a plate in front of her. "You've been working hard lately." Christina's lips curved into a pleased smile. "Ah, you're sweet." I leaned down and kissed her cheek, and then I took it one step further. I sat across from her, watching her sip her coffee, and said, "Babe, if you ever need more money, just let me know. I don't want you to stress." Her eyes lit up, her whole body relaxed. She beamed, thinking she had gotten away with everything. And that's when I knew she was going to keep spending, and every dollar she spent now was another nail in her coffin. For the next few weeks I let her think she was untouchable. She continued her life of luxury shopping spree, 5-star dining weekend getaways. She had no idea that every transaction, every cent she spent was being tracked, no idea that behind the scenes I had already cut her off. If I wanted Christina to take the fall, I had to play it smart. Revenge wasn't just about catching her, it was about making sure she had nothing left to hold on to when the hammer dropped. So I made 3 financial moves behind her back. Step 1: closing the escape routes. Christina thought she had access to all of our money. She was wrong. The joint bank accounts already handled. I had met with my lawyer weeks ago and moved every legally owned cent into a new private account under my name, only the house since my name was on the lease. I consulted my lawyer about the divorce timing. Once I filed, her access would be legally severed. She wouldn't even be able to set foot inside without my permission. Any investments, she never had access to them in the first place. So, what was she left with? The fraudulent credit cards and loans she had taken out in my name. The same one she was still blissfully unaware had been flagged for fraud. Step 2. The credit card trap. Christina had opened 3 credit cards in my name and maxed them out. If I didn't act fast, those debts would have legally fallen on me, so I reported the fraud within days. The banks froze all transactions, locking her out of the accounts while they conducted their investigation. And because I had clear evidence that Christina had signed for the cards without my consent, she used her own personal account to make payments. She used her email and phone number for verification. She had physically signed for deliveries. It was an open and shut case. The bank didn't just cancel the charges, they shifted the entire debt onto her. Her credit score completely destroyed, her financial future ruined, and she wouldn't even realize what had happened until it was too late. Step 3. The final blow. The fraud investigation. The moment the bank launched their fraud investigation, Christina's entire financial world crumbled. Her card stopped working, her accounts froze, her money gone. And the best part, she still thought I had no idea. 1 week before court, Christina started acting off. She had always been confident, cocky, even dismissive, smug, like she had the upper hand in everything. But that night she was anxious. "Elijah, have you noticed anything weird with the bank?" Christina asked casually, though. I could hear the forced lightness in her tone. I glanced up from my laptop, pretending to be distracted. Weird how she frowned, tapping her manicured nails against the counter. "I don't know. I think there's a problem with my cards. The rent check didn't go through, and I had trouble making a payment earlier." I let my face crease with fake confusion. "Huh? That's strange. Maybe you should call the bank." She nodded quickly, biting her lip. That was the moment I knew she had no idea what was coming 1 week before the divorce hearing. I've been waiting for this. Christina sat at the kitchen table, flipping through her phone absent-mindedly, sipping on the overpriced iced coffee she had Postmated earlier. She didn't know that within the next 5 minutes her entire world was about to collapse. A sharp knock at the door. I didn't move. I just watched as she stood up, opened it, and took The thick envelope from the delivery man. Who's this from? She muttered, mostly to herself. Then she saw the letter. Had my lawyer's office. I went back to scrolling on my phone, pretending to be deep in an article, but my eyes never left her face. She tore the envelope open, pulling out the stack of documents. Her eyes darted across the pages, scanning quickly. Then they stopped. Whine. Her breathing quickened, and then slam. She threw the papers down on the table so hard that my coffee cup rattled. "What the hell is this?" she snapped. I finally looked up, fighting mild surprise. "Something wrong, babe." She shoved the papers toward me. "You're filing for divorce." And she flipped frantically through the pages. Then her voice rose another octave. "What is this about fraud charges?" I exhaled slowly, leaning back in my chair, folding my arms. "You know exactly what this is about." Christina, her hands were trembling as she flipped to the financial breakdown. I watched as her eyes skimmed over the details. The fraudulent credit cards, $556. Zero in debt now, legally in her name. Evidence of unauthorized financial transactions, proof of her transferring money from my accounts. Records of her paying for vacations and gifts for Randy pending fraud investigations that would blacklist her from loans and credit. For years I saw it happen in real time, the blood draining from her face, her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Then barely a whisper. "Wait, no, this isn't fair." I leaned forward, my voice steady. "Isn't fair. You stole from me, Christina. You committed fraud. You thought I wouldn't notice." She started flipping through the documents again, faster now, as if she was searching for something, anything to fight back with. Then she saw the section about her assets. Her voice cracked. "Wait! Where's my share? Where's my half?" I smiled coldly. "You don't get a share, Christina." I let the words sink in before delivering the final blow. "You lost at the moment. You decided to screw me over." Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. Her breath hitched. And then Christina completely lost it. "You can't do this. I am your wife." Christina's voice cracked as she stared at me, panic flooding her expression. I shrugged, keeping my voice level. "And you are a fraud." Her hands clenched into fists. "But the credit cards are years." Now I cut her off coldly. "The money you spent all in your name." Her breath hitched, and for the first time in years I saw actual fear in her eyes. She wasn't just upset. She was terrified. Christina started hyperventilating. She lunged forward, gripping my arms, her nails digging into my skin. "Elijah, please, we can fix this." Her voice was desperate, shaking. "I made mistakes, okay, but we can fix it. We can fix us." I pry her hands off me and took a step back. "No, Christina, you can fix this because I'm done." And with that, I grabbed my tea, turned my back on her, and walked out the door. The next few days were pure destruction for her. The phone call started almost immediately, creditors one after another, hounding her for money she didn't have. I imagined her sitting on my couch, staring at her phone in horror. As reality hit, then came the second blow. Her job found out about the fraud investigation. I had no idea how they took the news, but I did know that her company had a very strict policy about financial crime. I wasn't surprised when she stopped posting about work altogether. And then the final twist, the one she never saw coming. I reached out to Randy's wife. Turns out she had no idea her husband had been cheating. She had been blissfully ignorant, just like I had been. But when I showed her the evidence, she was out for blood. Christina didn't just lose her marriage. She lost Randy too the night before the divorce hearing. I was just about to go to bed when my phone buzzed, a text from her. "Christina, Elijah. Please, I'm begging you, let's talk before tomorrow." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I smiled. "Too late, sweetheart." Tomorrow she was about to lose everything. The courthouse. The day had finally come. I arrived early, calm, collected, feeling like I had already won before the hearing had even begun. Christina was standing at the entrance, shifting uncomfortably on her heels. Her texts over the past 24 hours had been relentless. "Christina, Elijah, please let's talk before tomorrow." This is stupid. Christina, we don't need to do this in court. Christina, please at least let us meet first. I never responded. Now she was standing there waiting for me, her eyes scanning the crowd. The second she spotted me, she rushed over. Elijah, just wait. Let him talk before we go inside. I stared at her blankly. No. She grabbed my arm, squeezing hard. Please, Elijah, I know you're mad, but we can fix this. You don't have to do this. I pry her hand off me without a word. See you inside. Christina, her face twisted first in frustration, then in something else. Determination. That's when she switched tactics. She straightened up, smoothed her blazer, and forced herself into a confident stance, like she still had a chance, like she believed her lawyer could make all of this disappear. But deep down she was terrified, and that fear it was about to become reality. Inside the courtroom, Christina sat beside her lawyer, legs crossed, her hands clasped in her lap in a pathetic attempt at appearing composed, but I could see through the ACT. She wasn't calm, she was barely keeping it together. Her lawyer, a well-groomed man in an expensive suit, stood first. Your Honor, he began, his voice smooth and practiced. My client dedicated years of her life to this marriage. Despite any financial disputes, she's entitled to her fair share of assets and financial support. Mr. Howard has the means to provide, and given their years together, it's only reasonable that she be granted an equal division of assets. Christina gave the smallest nod, almost as if she was reassuring herself. I clenched my jaw. Even now she really believed she could walk out of here with half of everything after what she'd done. My lawyer, Mr. Ron Jerry, stood adjusting his glasses. Your Honor, he said, his tone even but firm, while my client acknowledges the marriage, we have irrefutable evidence that Mrs. Howard engaged in financial fraud, identity theft, and intentional misuse of marital funds. We request a financial forensic review before any asset division is even considered. The moment the word fraud was spoken, Christina's posture stiffened. Her lawyer, confidence faltered just slightly, so slight that most people wouldn't notice. But I did. Excuse me, Christina's lawyer said, a forced chuckle escaping him. From Mr. Jeremy didn't flinch. Instead, he calmly pulled out a thick stack of documents bound together neatly. He walked up to the judge's bench and handed them over. Let's discuss Exhibit A, Your Honor. The judge, a stern-looking woman in her 50s, flipped through the pages. Slowly I watched as her brows furrowed deeper the more she read. After a long moment she passed a copy to Christina's lawyer, and that was when the first crack in their defense appeared. The lawyer's lips pressed into a thin line as he skimmed the evidence. Christina, shifting in her seat, now tried to peek over his shoulder. I didn't have to see her face to know her expression. Panic. The judge turned to Christina directly. Mrs. Howard, she said, her voice firms, are official bank statements, credit card records, and emails from financial institutions confirming that you opened multiple credit accounts in Mr. Howard's name without his consent. She placed the papers down. Is this true? Christina opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her lawyer jumped in before she could incriminate herself. Objection, Your Honor. He cleared his throat, shifting slightly. My client had every right to use marital funds. These accounts were opened during the marriage, which means they are shared responsibilities. Mr. Jeremy didn't even blink. He was in complete control. His voice unwavering as he turned to the judge. Your Honor, I like to direct your attention to page 17, he said, flipping through the stack of documents in his hands. Here it clearly shows that Mrs. Howard listed herself as the sole point of contact for these credit cards. The billing addresses, verification emails, and purchase receipts all lead back to her alone. Additionally, he continued, pausing just long enough for the weight of his words to settle. She made payments from her personal checking account, proving she was deliberately hiding these transactions from my client. The judge studied the pages, his frown deepening as he absorbed the information. He then turned his sharp gaze to Christina. Mrs. Howard, do you have an explanation for this? Christina swallowed hard. Well, Elijah knew about these, she blurted out, her voice high and desperate. I let out a quiet laugh. Even now she was still trying to lie her way out of this. Mr. Jeremy smirked. Did he? Because we have sworn affidavit from the bank, stating that Mr. Howard filed fraud reports the moment he discovered them. Christina's lawyer visibly paled. He flipped through his own notes, probably looking for some loophole, some weak spot he could exploit, but there was nothing. The judge turned to him. Does your client have a response to these claims? Her lawyer hesitated, flipping the pages faster now, but his face said everything he knew. They were trapped. Your Honor, he started, his voice strained. We request a brief recess to reassess our case. The judge barely glanced at the clock. Request denied. He motioned to Mr. Jeremy. Continue. Christina gripped the table. Her knuckles were white, her breathing shallow for the first time. She looked genuinely afraid. Mr. Jeremy cleared his throat. Fraud isn't the only betrayal in this case, he said smoothly. We have indisputable evidence that Mrs. Howard engaged in an extramarital affair and used these fraudulent funds to finance vacations, hotels, and lavish gifts for her affair partner, the man named Randy Hayes. Christina's lawyer shot to his feet. Objection. He barked. This is irrelevant to the financial case. The judge held up a hand, cutting him off. I'll allow it. Christina out. A shaky breath, her lips pressed into a thin line. Mr. Jeremy nodded and handed over another folder. These are receipts, travel itineraries, and transaction logs showing Mrs. Howard's trips to New York, Miami, and Las Vegas, all paid for with the fraudulent credit cards. Additionally, he said, flipping the file open, here is photographic evidence of Mrs. Howard and Mr. Hayes at multiple hotels obtained by a private investigator. The judge's eyes narrowed as he examined the high-resolution images. He flipped through them slowly, his expression unreadable, but I knew what he was seeing. Christina draped over Randy in a dimly lit hotel lobby, her hand in his back pocket, a poolside selfie of the two of them, cocktails in hand, their smiles bright with the thrill of getting away with it all, a shot of them entering a luxury suite together at the Four Seasons. Christina's mouth dropped open, her lawyer's face turned a sickly shade of gray. The judge looked up, his voice even but firm. Mrs. Howard, he said slowly, is this true? Christina turned to her lawyer. In desperation, do something, she hissed, but he just shook his head because there was nothing left to do. The judge let out a heavy sigh, rubbing his temple as if the weight of the decision was pressing down on him. Then, in a firm, unwavering voice, he delivered his verdict. Given the overwhelming evidence of financial fraud, misuse of marital assets, and infidelity, the court rules in favor of Mr. Howard. Effective immediately, all fraudulent credit card debt will be assigned to Mrs. Howard. Mr. Howard is granted full ownership of all remaining assets. Mrs. Howard is ineligible for alimony. Furthermore, a fraud investigation will proceed against Mrs. Howard. The words echoed in the courtroom like a gavel striking stone. Christina's face twisted. In pure horror, her mouth opened and closed as if trying to form an argument, trying to grasp on as something, anything that could reverse what was happening. No, this isn't fair, she shrieked, her voice raw with desperation. The judge banged his gavel. Mrs. Howard, that is enough, but she wasn't finished, not yet. She turned on me, her eyes burning with pure hatred. Elijah, you bastard, you set me up. I stood slowly, keeping my voice calm, controlled. No, Christina, you set yourself up. I just made sure you got what you deserved. For a second, there was nothing but silence, just the sound of Christina's heavy breathing. Then she lunged. She moved fast, her hands clawing toward me, but security was faster. A guard stepped between us, grabbing her arm and forcing her back before she could reach me. Let go of me, she screamed, thrashing wildly. This isn't over, Elijah. You can't just walk away from me like this. I adjusted my suit, looking at her one last time. I already have. As I walked out of the courtroom, I could still hear her behind me, sobbing into her hands. Her lawyer refused to even look at her. He was already gathering his papers, probably eager to wash his hands of the entire mess. I stepped outside into the cool air, exhaling deeply. It was over a week later. I was sipping my morning coffee when my phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. Hey, Just wanted to let you know Christina tried to contact Randy. He blocked her. She's completely alone now. Thought you'd like to know. Cheers. I stared at the screen for a moment, then let out a low chuckle. Christina had spent months stealing, lying, and cheating, and now she had absolutely nothing in the weeks following the trial. Christina's world collapsed around her with the court. Ruling in my favor, she was left drowning in debt with no way out. Her credit was destroyed, her fraudulent accounts flagged, and no bank was willing to lend her a single cent. The life she had built on deception had crumbled, and now she was paying the price. Literally, she had no choice but to start liquidating whatever she had left her car. Once a flashy luxury sedan that she had proudly driven around was the first to go. She tried to negotiate a better price, but desperation wasn't a good bargaining chip. The dealership low-balled her, but she had no leverage. She sold it for half of what it was worth the money, barely making a dent in what she owed me next. She started selling off her jewelry, designer handbags, and anything else of value. The expensive gifts she had once flaunted bought with stolen money were now being haggled over in pawn shops. It wasn't enough, still short on cash, she turned to the only person she thought she could rely on, her new lover, Hank. Hank was a street smart rough, around the edges type of a guy, and had connections. She didn't fully understand when she told him about her situation. He listened, tapping his fingers against the table. "I know some guys who can help," he finally said, "but it won't be cheap." Christina didn't have options that night. Hank introduced her to a group of men in a dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town. They weren't businessmen, and they certainly weren't bankers. They operated in cash. No paperwork, no questions. She needed money fast, and they were more than willing to provide at an insane interest rate. Desperation clouded her judgment. She didn't care about the consequences. She signed off on the deal, and walked away with a fat envelope of cash, enough to settle what she owed me. She wired the money the next morning, swallowing her pride as she watched her bank balance drain for a brief moment. She felt relief. But relief was fleeting. The first payment to the loan sharks came due faster than she expected. The interest was brutal. What seemed manageable at first quickly turned into a nightmare. She scrambled to make payments, but the money she had left was barely enough to keep her afloat, and when she missed her first deadline, they didn't send a polite reminder, they sent a warning. A sharp knock on her apartment door one night. She opened it to find two men standing there. "You're late," one of them said simply. "I just need more time." She stammered, her heart pounding. "Time costs extra," the other one said with a smirk. "You don't want to be late again." Christina, the door closed, but the message was clear. She was in deep, and this time no amount of lying or manipulation was going to save her. 5 months later, Christina vanished. No calls, no texts, no desperate pleas for help, just gone. At first I didn't think much of it. Maybe she had finally run out of options and skipped town, trying to start fresh somewhere. No one knew her name, but then I started hearing things shady bars have, a way of keeping secrets and spreading rumors at the same time, and the whispers weren't good. Word on the street was that Christina had dug herself into a hole so deep there was no climbing out. She had missed too many payments, and the loan sharks had lost patience when money stops coming in. They don't just walk away. They collect their debts one way or another. Some said they had given her one last chance to work off what she owed. Others said they didn't even bother with warnings. They just took her. The ugliest rumors claimed she'd been sold off to some guys in Thailand. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want to know the details once. I might have felt something, anger, pity, even satisfaction. But standing at the edge of it all, looking back, I felt nothing. Christina had spent years lying, stealing, and destroying everything in her path, convinced she could outsmart the consequences. She was wrong, and now she was gone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.